Have you ever had a moment where your body reacted before your mind did? Not fear, not anxiety. A split second where something inside you just said, stop. And later, when things played out, you realized that moment saved you from something you couldn't see yet. Now listen carefully. What if that reaction wasn't instinct? What if it was information? Because here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Your brain reacts before you consciously decide. And sometimes it reacts to things that haven't happened yet. That sounds impossible until you realize this. Your phone predicts your next word before you type it. Streaming platforms know what you'll watch next. Navigation apps reroute you before traffic even reaches you. None of these systems predict the future. They simulate it. Now here's the spike. Stay with me. What if part of your consciousness does the same thing, but with your life? If multiple outcomes can be simulated, and if versions of you exist across those outcomes, why would they stay silent when you're about to repeat a mistake they already lived? They wouldn't. They couldn't. They would signal you. Not with words. With sensations. Most people miss this because they expect messages to sound dramatic. They expect voices, visions, something supernatural. But real signals are quieter and faster. They arrive before language. That's why you feel them in your body first. Your chest tightens. Your stomach drops. Your focus snaps. Then your mind rushes in and says, relax, you're overthinking. That sentence alone has destroyed more good decisions than failure ever has. The science that makes this uncomfortable is simple. In psychology, this is called preconscious processing. Your brain receives information and begins responding to it before you become aware of it. Neuroscientists have measured this delay. Your conscious awareness is late by milliseconds. Usually, that doesn't matter. But now imagine this. What if some of that information doesn't come from your past, but from pattern simulations of your future? That's where things get interesting and slightly disturbing. Think about this honestly. How many times have you said, I knew this would happen. I should have trusted that feeling. Something told me not to do this. You didn't say, I calculated this would happen. You said, I knew. Knowledge without steps. Recognition without memory. That shouldn't exist, but it does. Let's talk about 1111 briefly, without fluff. People don't see repeating numbers randomly. They see them during identity shifts, emotional crossroads, and decision pressure. That's not magic. That's attention synchronization. When your internal state becomes unstable, questioning, searching, shifting, your perception becomes sharper. Patterns stand out. And numbers are the cleanest pattern the brain recognizes. They don't mean destiny. They mean pay attention right now. That's it. Now here's the part most people don't want to hear. If signals exist, and if you felt them before, then ignoring them wasn't ignorance. It was override. And overrides always come with consequences. Not punishment. Feedback. What you're about to hear next are the 7 most common ways these signals break through. Not dramatic, not mystical, but undeniably familiar. And once you recognize them, you'll realize something uncomfortable. You've been getting messages for a long time. You just didn't know how to listen. Before we move forward, let me warn you about something. Once you recognize these signs, you don't just hear them anymore. You start catching yourself in real time. Moments where your body reacts, but your mind hasn't caught up yet. That's where this gets interesting. Most dreams are noise. Random images. Broken scenes. Thoughts spilling over. But some dreams don't behave that way. Some dreams feel structured. You move through them in sequence. Time feels normal. Your awareness feels sharp. You're not floating. You're there. And when you wake up, something feels off, not because the dream was scary, but because it felt complete. Here's the detail that changes everything. In these dreams, you often know things you shouldn't know. You recognize people you've never met. You understand situations without explanation. You make decisions without hesitation. That's not imagination. Imagination hesitates. This doesn't. Sleep researcher Matthew Walker explains that during certain dream phases, the brain becomes more integrated than during waking thought, meaning your mind is temporarily less filtered, less critical, less defensive, and less noisy. Now imagine information entering your awareness during that window. Not created, received. Think about learning something complex. When you struggle with it, progress is slow. But when you step away and sleep on it, the solution sometimes appears instantly. You didn't work harder. You stopped interfering. That's what these dreams are. Moments where resistance drops and information flows freely. If the same dream returns, especially with small changes, it's not obsession. It's delivery retry. Like a message sent again because it wasn't fully received. And the moment you finally understand it, the dream stops. This is where most people get confused. They think intuition feels emotional. It doesn't. Fear is emotional. Anxiety is emotional. Intuition is neutral. It arrives fast, clean, undramatic, and that's why people ignore it. Your nervous system reacts before language. That's not spiritual. That's biology. You pull your hand away from heat before you think hot. Now scale that up to decisions. Intuition is your system reacting to information faster than your mind can explain. Philosopher Baruch Spinoza said something that unsettles people. Truth reveals itself without force. That's intuition. No debate. No justification. Just recognition. Fear spirals. Asks what if. Feels urgent. Demands action. Intuition arrives whole. Feels calm. Doesn't argue. Doesn't explain. If you've ever felt a quiet certainty that made no sense logically, that was intuition. And the moment you argue with it, you lost access to it. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you said, "I knew better, but I did it anyway"? That wasn't confusion. That was override. And override always feels justified right before consequences arrive. The more you ignore intuition, the louder it becomes. Not because it's angry, because subtle signals failed. So the system escalates. That's why people say, "I don't know why, but I just can't ignore this anymore." They could have earlier. They just didn't. This is where people usually stop calling it coincidence. Because this sign doesn't happen once. It stacks. You're thinking about making a change. Not casually, seriously. And suddenly the same number keeps appearing. The same message shows up in different places. Different people repeat the same advice. At first, it's subtle. You shrug it off. But then it keeps happening. And at some point, your brain can't ignore it anymore. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your brain is incredible at ignoring patterns until they threaten your sense of control. Once a pattern becomes undeniable, you either listen or you rationalize. Most people rationalize, because listening means admitting you're not fully in control. Psychologist Carl Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidence without direct cause. Modern systems theory would describe it as alignment. When your internal state is unstable, questioning, shifting, ready to change, your perception sharpens. Your attention becomes selective, and suddenly patterns stand out. Let's remove the mystery. Numbers like 1111, 222, or 333 don't do anything. They don't cause events. They act like markers, like timestamps. They show up when your attention is split between paths, your identity is shifting, and your nervous system is alert. They're not messages. They're signals that you're at a threshold. And thresholds are dangerous places for people who want certainty. Ask yourself this honestly. Do these patterns appear when life is calm and predictable, or when something inside you knows a decision is coming? That's not magic. That's timing. Most people misunderstand déjà vu. They think it's just memory confusion. But real déjà vu has a second layer. You don't just feel like you've been here before. You feel like you know what comes next. For a brief moment, you anticipate the next sentence. You sense the next movement. You recognize the outcome. And then it vanishes, leaving you unsettled, because something just broke your understanding of time. Neuroscientist David Eagleman explains that your brain processes reality before you're consciously aware of it. Normally, that delay is invisible. Déjà vu is when you feel the delay. Recognition arrives before explanation, like seeing lightning before hearing thunder. Your mind expects memory to move backward from past to present. Déjà vu flips that expectation. It feels like remembering something that hasn't happened yet. That contradiction is why people dismiss it. Because accepting it would mean admitting that awareness doesn't follow time perfectly. Here's what almost no one talks about. Déjà vu often happens when you're following a path you've internally rehearsed before. Not consciously, but informationally. It's not warning you. It's confirming something. And confirmation is dangerous because it removes excuses. Most people shake it off. They distract themselves. They move on. Because sitting with that moment would force a bigger question. If I've been here before, what else do I already know? You go to sleep confused. Not casually confused, deeply stuck. You've turned the problem over in your head 100 times. Nothing fits. Nothing resolves. Then you wake up, and the answer is just there. No steps. No reasoning. No effort. Just clarity. The solution feels so obvious that your mind almost rejects it. You think, why didn't I see this before? Because you weren't meant to force it. You were meant to receive it. Mathematician Henri Poincaré described this exact process. After days of failed effort, insight appeared suddenly, complete and undeniable. He realized something unsettling. Conscious effort didn't create the solution. It blocked it. Imagine shaking a snow globe. The more you shake it, the less you can see. Only when you stop does the picture become clear. Sleep doesn't add intelligence. It removes interference. These answers don't argue. They don't ask permission. They don't come with doubt. That's how you know they didn't come from anxiety. Anxiety is loud. This is quiet and final. Because accepting it means admitting you didn't solve the problem. Your identity didn't earn the answer. Something outside your effort delivered it. That's uncomfortable for people who equate control with safety. This is the sign that scares people the most. Because it doesn't feel emotional. It feels done. You wake up one day and know you're leaving, you're ending something, or you're changing direction. No drama. No anger. No sadness. Just certainty. You don't want this feeling. But you can't argue with it. You realize I can stay, but I won't be able to pretend anymore. That's the moment everything changes. Psychologist Abraham Maslow noticed that self-actualizing people often made life-changing decisions suddenly, after long periods of internal tension. The decision wasn't impulsive. The clarity was sudden. Small signals were ignored. Subtle nudges dismissed. Quiet discomfort tolerated. Until the system escalated. Not to punish you. To protect you from staying too long. People who ignore this sign often say later, "That was the moment I should have listened." They don't say, "I didn't know." They say, "I knew," and stayed anyway. That sentence carries weight because it exposes the truth. Neither of these signs feels emotional. Neither feels dramatic. Both feel informational. They don't ask, they inform. And once they arrive, they don't repeat forever. This final sign is quieter than the others, but it stays with people the longest, because it doesn't feel like a signal. It feels like recognition. You meet someone for the first time. There's no fireworks, no excitement, just ease. Conversation flows without effort. Silence feels comfortable. You don't perform. It feels like you've resumed something instead of starting it. Or you arrive at a place you've never been, yet your body relaxes. You know where to go. You know where you belong. Not logically, but instinctively. This is the moment people whisper, "This feels strange." Not because it's new, because it's already known. Anthropologist Joseph Campbell described this sensation as a memory without origin. That phrase matters, because memory normally requires experience. This doesn't. Your brain doesn't store memory only as images. It stores it as patterns, movement patterns, emotional patterns, relational patterns. Once a pattern is learned deeply enough, it doesn't need conscious recall. Your body recognizes it instantly, like riding a bike. Now apply that to relationships, to environments, to paths you've already walked in another outcome. If recognition can exist without memory, how many things in your life have felt right for reasons you couldn't explain? And why did you trust them anyway? Here's the paradox. Blind belief weakens this process. Expectation distorts perception. Skepticism keeps the channel clean. You don't need to believe in parallel versions of yourself. You only need to notice patterns. Patterns repeat whether you believe in them or not. This is where most people overcomplicate things. They look for rituals, techniques, formulas. You don't need any of that. You need attention. When a signal appears, pause for 2 seconds. Don't judge it. Don't analyze it. Just register it. That pause is acknowledgement. And acknowledgement strengthens signal clarity. Ask better questions. Not what should I do, but what am I not seeing yet? This keeps control without forcing outcomes. Before sleep, hold one question gently, not urgently, not emotionally. Just place it there, like setting something on a desk. Insight follows stillness, not demand. When you wake up, write whatever comes first. Meaning often arrives before language organizes it. When people do this consistently, they report the same changes. Decisions feel lighter. Timing improves. Fewer regrets. Less internal noise. A strange sense of being early to problems. Not because life becomes easier, because resistance drops. This isn't about predicting the future. It's about aligning with it. You're not asking what will happen. You're sensing what already knows. Think of walking through a dark room. Logic moves step by step. Intuition turns on the lights. Both are useful, but only one shows you what you're about to walk into. If you felt any of this, the hesitation, the knowing, the recognition, then you're not discovering something new. You're remembering something familiar. You're not watching this casually. Something in your life is shifting, questioning, pressing for clarity. That sensitivity isn't weakness. It's readiness. The next time you feel a quiet certainty, a repeated pattern, or a sudden internal stop or go, don't rush past it. Ask yourself, what part of me already understands this? Because you're not navigating life in a straight line. You're navigating it across possibilities. And somewhere beyond the noise of thought, there may already be a version of you who has walked this road and is simply waiting for you to listen. If this video made you pause, if it challenged the way you see life, death, or your own awareness, then this channel is for you. We don't chase trends here. We explore ideas that change how you think and how you live. Subscribe, not for entertainment, but for clarity, depth, and understanding that stays with you long after the video ends.